everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show that makes being neurodivergent fun. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we are talking about a TV trope full character classification. Those are all great words. That was the best sentence I think I've ever had in my life.
Yeah. Before we get started, I'm going to do something that all of the women on our list would hate, which is get off track before we even start. So I'm going to try to keep this brief, but for you listeners, if you don't want to hear me go on a mini rant about Mighty Ducks 3, skip ahead a little bit. Matt doesn't have that option because he's here live with me.
I'm stuck.
I watched it the other day. It's not a good movie.
Who thought, let's not have Emilio Estevez have any role in the movie, but let's still put him on the cover and make him be, the big part of the marketing material?
Yeah, that's not even the worst part of it. The worst part of it is, Charlie is a whiny, selfish character. They get hockey scholarships to go to this pretty big, prestigious school. And then, Gordon Bombay's like, hey, I just got my absolute dream job. And instead of being like, hey, I'm happy for you, he's like, well, quit that and be our hockey coach forever. You're not happy for your friend getting his dream job. And then he thinks that, okay, they're on a hockey scholarship. You don't think that you might have a tough coach? And the second the coach says, well, you're on my team now, he quits and then does the most rebellious thing he can do and go to Mall of America. Because how dare this hockey coach not make me the leader? It's just, I end up not liking Charlie throughout the entire movie.
There's a lot to not like throughout the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
Was that also the one where they stuck them with the bill for,
yes.
And there was pranks back and forth between the A team and the JV?
Yeah.
Yeah. By A team, I mean varsity. I know what things are, guys.
Yeah. I could go on a longer rant about that movie, but I was watching, I have probably not seen this movie in years, and I'm just now realizing, this is not a good movie, and Charlie is a selfish person.
True. It's terrible. I'm so sorry for all of you people out there who are huge Mighty Ducks fans. By the way, I was in the middle of season 2 of that Mighty Ducks show, and then they're like, we're going to take it off Disney Plus. And because it's a Disney Plus show, there's nowhere you can watch it. It's not like I'm super invested in it, but I'm like, I would have liked to close out the tab and known that it was just going to get pulled off. If you guys produced and created the show, why don't you have it on your streaming platform? What's wrong with you?
Well, I'm guessing that the kids have fights and then eventually they become friends again and they play a lot of hockey.
I said Mighty Ducks, not Cobra Kai. Oh, wait. No, then you said hockey at the end.
Yeah.
Gosh, the overlap is ridiculous. And I know where you're going with this.
This is a comparison where hockey is the less violent one of the two.
That's rare in life.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to give a little bit of a disclaimer on this episode too, because it's I don't know what the title is going to end up being, because I don't like the title that we have, where this character type is there's a female character type in usually comedies that they play their neurosis or their OCD or whatever it is. They play that for laughs. And in our culture now of a better understanding of mental health, I know that there's a lot of people out there that really doesn't sit well with them. And so even to name this, I think when we pitch it, we're oh, we'll call them neurotic ladies, but even that doesn't set, I don't like that title.
Yeah. But it's the women who are super organized, super successful, straight A students, uptight, those kinds of characters.
I'm not an expert on this, how we've kind of changed some of the terminology, because I know that now neurodivergent, I kind of joked about that. It's the buzzword. I don't even know completely what all that encompasses, and so I think we can call these neurodivergent women, and that would fit, but I don't know for sure. So
I think that could work. I mean, that's a broad term.
Yes.
But I think it's the best option we have.
So let's avoid making all of our female listeners and all of our neurodivergent people mad as well. We're narrowing, or we're navigating these waters on a tightrope.
I would say, hey, let us know what we should put, but by the time they're listening to this, we will have already had to post it with a title.
And then they'll say, hey, you should have named it this. We'll be like, well, at this point, we can't do nothing about it. So,
I mean, the only thing we could change is when I put it on YouTube, I could change the title.
True. All right. Well, there you go. So that's our disclaimer. If you're listening, you're like, you guys aren't treating this the respect it deserves. We don't treat each other with the respect we deserve. So, I mean, why should this be any different?
And here's the thing, like the women in my list, they're all very successful, capable women. Like, I'm not making fun of them. Well, some of them maybe I am, but not because they're women.
So let's get into probably the poster girl for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, for our generation, the one that is just highlighted and super easy to think of is Monica from Friends.
Yeah.
She was one of the, like, first big ones that I remember seeing in a sitcom. I know that there's been plenty, but she was the one that definitely comes to mind. And you think of her so much that you've named yourself Monica Geller in our chat here. So,
yeah. I mean, there are a lot of instances as to what you can do. But I think one of the biggest ones is that little arc in season 4 after they had the trivia game where they switched apartments. And had that episode where she was so obsessed at being the hostess that she completely redid everything in Chandler and Joey's old apartment. She redecorated, she ripped up the carpet and was like buffering the floors, making cookies, giving the guys Playboys, which whatever, but like, I mean, it was part of her going over the top, and like she's like, no, I am the hostess. I am the one. Everyone comes to my place, even if I have a smaller place. I'm gonna do that. Whereas, you know, Rachel was just like, okay, I guess we live here now. I'm not gonna do anything.
Yeah, I like Monica's my favorite one of like instance of this is like Monica and Chandler when Chandler tries to clean up for her and then doesn't remember where he put certain or where she had certain things, and he's like, oh crap, things are not in the right spot, and then has to like partner with Ross and like look at old photos to try and see where did everything go, and going through the whole apartment trying to put every single thing back the way that it was.
I've done that with my own house. If I'm cleaning, I'm like, how is this not looking right? Like if I really do a deep clean, which I haven't done in like over a year, like I'll vacuum around like the chairs in here. But like a long time ago, I moved all the chairs into the kitchen so I could do a full vacuum. And I'm putting them back. I was rearranging the chairs for like a long time. I'm like, this doesn't look quite right. So I get that, how it's really hard to keep everything exactly right. It's almost like you need to take continuity Polaroids of like your house like before you move anything.
Those are called memories, Brian, and so you go with those. You know what I'm realizing as we're talking about this? Monica is just a comedic female version of Carmi Berzatto, a successful detail-oriented chef who is ruled by a mental illness.
But she swears less because they were on NBC.
That's true. You got me on that one.
Yeah.
And she lives in Chicago. He lives in Chicago. No, I'm sorry. She lives in New York. He lives in Chicago.
Yeah.
By the way,
poster child for that.
I don't know if we are going to have an episode. We might about season 3 of The Bear. The Bear is still a great show. I just finally finished season 3, and I'm like, this season 1 and 2 were just so good that season 3 was mediocre, but it feels like it was like super bad because of just how good season 1 and 2 were.
Sometimes a bad episode of TV makes for a great podcast.
That's true. We should pick some bad episodes and talk about them. Robert California season, anyone?
That's true, yeah. There's a particularly bad, bingo card up today. There's a particularly bad episode of Power Rangers, and that means not for Power Ranger standards. Like it's a 2-parter.
Which are low to begin with.
Yeah, they set up their own like time travel stuff, and they don't even have it match up in the second episode. It's awful. But what I love is the Ranger Danger podcast episode about that, because it makes them so angry, and hearing them yell about it is hilarious. So I will not go back and rewatch that episode hardly ever, but I will listen to that. I have re-listened to that podcast several times.
My favorite quote unquote like bad episodes of shows are like the ones of like either Saturday Night Live or Whose Line Is It Anyway, where it's like everyone starts cracking and breaking during the scene, and like the whole thing just completely devolves. But the thing is, like, it can be so hilarious. There's a Lindsay Lohan one from Saturday Night Live where they're all at like Disneyland. And then there's the Debbie Downer eating breakfast with them. And so they're all talking about how much fun they're having at Disneyland. And then Debbie Downer is like bringing up all these terrible things. And just everyone's losing it at the table. And so that's one of my favorite skits, is just watching no one be able to hold it together.
Yeah. They did a whole sketch on the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary, which next year we're already going to be up to the 50th.
Jeez.
Where I think it was Andy Samberg and Adam Sandler did a song together about everybody who broke. And it's like they're naming, here's a clip of this person and this person. And then it just goes into like they throw a lot of shade on Jimmy Fallon and Horatio Sands.
Yeah.
Because at the end, they're like, here's this person and this person. Here's this person and this person. Here's Farley and Spade. And like, here's Fallon and Sands. And here's another Fallon and Sands. And here's another Fallon and Sands.
That's pretty great. All right, who's another character that fits this trope?
Another one, actually, she's the one I noticed when I was watching the show that I had to make this a character type, which is Amy Santiago from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Nice.
Because if it was opened up outside of women, you could also put Captain Holt in here. But this is what bonds Amy and Captain Holt, is their attention to detail. Everything has to be proper. Everything has to be right. Everything has to be clean. Like the opposite, like, her and Jake are a classic opposites attract kind of couple. Yep. And her love for binders and organizing things. And like, there was even that episode where there's like a big takedown of the internet happening where like they're being hacked, and she's at the dentist appointment and she's like running across town trying to get there because they said that she had FOMO, which is fear of missing out of work. And it's like, it's not like she instead of being like obsessed about, hey, I got to have a good time, I got to relax, she's like, no, I have to be, if anything interesting is happening at work, I have to do this. And just her, and I mean, you can see how other characters make fun of her. Like, there's a Halloween heist when Gina hides in plain sight by dressing in Amy's clothes. Yeah, because she's so lacking in pizzazz.
But she ends up being like such a unique character. She, like, the way that she stands out, because she's the organization in a chaotic department. Even though like Holt is supposed to bring that organization, like you said, she is the one that like really responds to it and has been trying to do this all along. And she's not like a straight man, because she has plenty of humor on her own, and also the humor is not at the expense so much of her organization or her personality quirks. There's a little bit of it, but she just is funny outright as a character. And some of the back and forth that she has with different characters is pretty great. I'm having a hard time coming up with a specific of Amy and her because I haven't seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine in a while. But
see, and I recently rewatched the whole series, so they're all fresh in my mind.
Well,
you're right. She's not the butt of the joke in the same way that like Charles is often.
Yeah. And yet even that, they'll still subvert it. Like we've talked about this before. I just love Peralta and Charles's dynamic of like Charles coming in and like, he says something so off-putting or weird and awkward, and they can make fun of it. But like Jake is still really supportive of him. That's just not something you would expect from a comedy, especially not a Mike Schur comedy.
Yeah,
sure.
I forget what they were talking about, but at one point Charles says to somebody like, "That's creepy," and that's coming from me.
Was that the one when Charles like was actually like becoming cool and he had like that leather jacket that was working for him? And like he became the voice of reason for Peralta, and Peralta's like, I don't like this dynamic.
So, do you have anything else to say about Amy, or can we move on to the next one?
I don't have anything else to say about Amy. Do you want me to bring up the next one?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. So far we've had OCD more like leaning more towards that type of behavior. It might have been cool if we like one of us was really knowledgeable about mental health things, because it would be, or like even personality traits, to be able to be like, okay, here's someone and let's diagnose them, but we are way underqualified for that. And so we have someone who's not quite in the same category but is a different kind of neurotic, and oh, there's that word again. And so that's Elliot Reed from Scrubs. She's on the list. Yeah, she's like, she's not as detail oriented, although she has to be because she is a doctor. Like she's smart, she's together in her brain, but at the same time, she's got a lot of issues that come out of like this. I'm trying to think of what would be the best way to put this. But Elliot, she's smart, she's successful, but she definitely has her neurosis that come out in terms of like, she's got the insecurities that she hyper fixates on. Yeah. She has and like there you see like different things. Who's the one guest that came on that was just like, I can pinpoint anyone's weakness with just like immediately, and she's like, oh yeah, how about me? She's like, your eyebrows. And then Elliot like freaks out and is like, what's wrong with my eyebrows?
I'm trying to remember who that was. Was that a guest or was that Dr. Cox or Jordan?
It might have been Jordan. You know what? Might have been Jordan. But she also has that side of like the oversharing, like the need for connection, that she really puts herself out for anyone without being able to know, hey, can I trust them? Is this a safe person to be this way with? But she has that complete like obsessive longing to emotionally connect. And so that's why all of her stories are like, these are way too personal. It starts off fine, but you eventually get to a point that's like, well, you should have stopped like 5 sentences ago.
Yeah. Kind of like when this also shows this was socially acceptable as a joke in your show in the early 2000s. How many jokes about her gay brother Barry where the joke is that he's gay?
Yeah. Or how many of her stories ended up with someone like committing suicide?
Yeah. And then he killed himself. At one point they said, how many of your stories end with, and then he killed himself? And she's like, oh, too many. Or like she is unable to like say the words of genitals. And they're like, you're a doctor. You have to be able to say these words.
Yeah. And then Bill Lawrence like later writes Ted Lasso, who's a great picture of like how to write a character with mental health issues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was what, 20 years later? Maybe not 20, but close to 20.
Yeah, close. 15, probably.
Yeah. I don't think that Cougar Town was much better.
Yeah, probably not. I've never watched it. I'm not Abed, so.
I've seen enough of it, and the only thing I would recommend seeing is the little end tag where it's the Scrubs reunion. Because, well, a lot of characters from Scrubs are on Cougar Town as like recurring characters, like Monica, like actually, Courtney Cox's dad on the show is played by Ken Jenkins, Dr. Kelso, and then eventually Sam Lloyd is on the show as Ted from Scrubs, and then this weird thing where he's like surrounded in like the house with all the characters who are from Scrubs. He's like, everybody here reminds me of someone I used to work with, and then it actually is like the Dr. Kelso doppelganger walks in and he freaks out and like runs into the screen glass door, and the pizza guy comes in and it's Zach Braff, and then the pool guy comes in and it's the Todd.
Of course, Todd would be the pool guy.
Yeah. And it's just like a little like, hey, here's all the cast of Scrubs minus Turk and Carla and Cox. So
the favorites.
Yeah.
That's all I got about Elliot.
Yeah. Next one I have is another one who fits this perfectly. Annie Edison from Community.
Yeah, she's one that I had thought of too.
Yeah.
She's not on my list, but I had thought of her while we were talking. So I get points still.
Okay. It's like, whose line is anyway? Whose line is anyway? The points don't matter.
Yep.
Well, Annie's whole backstory is that she was so obsessed with getting good grades and being successful that she was taking pills. Like, was it like Adderall pills to stay up and study?
Yeah.
It's the kind of pills they would have a special episode of Seventh Heaven about. It's one of those. And so because of that, she has to go to community college. But she's the one who always gets them on track. And then later on, when they're the Save Greendale committee, they're always like, well, I'll do whatever task Annie's doing because she's going to do all the work. And like, she also kind of like Amy has, binders for everything. And remember at one point they were like, there's glitter and then there's puffy glitter. And like, just everything has to be just right. Everything has to be so-so. And the only time she really lets that go a little bit is when Jeff's involved. Jeff is like the wrench in the gears that like gets her all flustered. But other than that, she's like a rigid clock.
Yeah. She's a really interesting character, but she's more interesting not as like the object of sexual affection for whoever it is. She's more interesting as her character. Like I like that Jeff early on is like, that's Annie. We try not to sexualize Annie. She's real young or whatever. And then they end up doing that anyway. Like, there's season 2.
There's a ton of episodes where they sexualize her a ton. Like the paintball episode where she's basically like just dressed in a corset.
Or like her song in the Christmas episode.
Oh yeah.
There's a point where you reach diminishing returns.
Yeah. Her last line of her song is literally boopy doopy doop boop sex.
Yes.
That is my least favorite. I love that episode, but I'm not a fan of that song.
Really? That's weird. I would have figured. No, I like Annie though. I think that what she brings to the group is that sense of organizational structure that is sorely needed, because you need someone to be like, we're pushing for something. We need to move a plot along. We need to actually put our boots in and like dig in and do this. And she's definitely like the gung-ho, let's do this sort of character. Yeah. And it's a really good inspiration for the people around her, even though, and it gives a lot of comedic opportunities when they're all like, either they contribute in the worst way possible or they don't want to contribute at all.
Yeah. No, I agree. Good example would be when they're helping Annie move. Because Jeff doesn't help at all. Or Jeff gets out of it by pretending he's in the hospital. Troy and Albert have good intentions, but they also end up just playing with the tape.
Yep. And that's when Pierce gets high on fumes as he's trying to paint something?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Britta and Shirley, they're actually helping, but they have their they meet up with Coach Beard, who's Jesus.
Of course.
Yeah. When Jesus loves marijuana.
Oh yeah.
And drinking human blood. That's a whole other story.
Something's telling me this guy's not really Jesus.
Really?
I don't know.
I thought he was.
I can't put my finger on it.
I thought the rapture happened. 15 years ago.
You want to hear another character that would fit in this? And it's a very different one because this isn't a comedy. They actually portray this coping mechanism. That's really more of what it is. There's some of this neurodivergent behavior with this character, but we really see it in a coping mechanism she has, and that's Marie from Breaking Bad.
Also, you didn't give me a chance to answer. You said, "Do you want to hear about?" What if I said no and just end the podcast?
Too bad. Suck it up. I'm the talent. I get paid more by myself.
You pay yourself and I pay myself.
I'm also the producer, and I pay me every week for a stipend. But Marie, she has this very involve myself in your business sort of behavior, that she feels responsible for other people's stuff and other people's drama. And I don't know if it's so much responsibility as much as it is just I really want to engage in that. But she's constantly trying to stick her nose in with Skylar stuff. She's constantly super involved with Hank, which he needed when he got shot. And there was the good side of that, thankfully, that we saw with her. But with Walt's cancer too, of I have an opinion on this and you have to listen to my opinion. But then when she can't control people, her coping mechanism is kleptomania, of stealing different items and going to these open houses and just taking them and to have this sort of control sense. And so it's a really unique presentation because that's not like this is a archetype that a lot of people fit under. This is how it's presenting for her, and it's a really unique case to watch a character like that. So that I felt like we needed to at least talk about her.
Yeah, I never liked Marie during Breaking Bad, but I liked her a lot in the Better Call Saul finale when she was the one. I mean, they could have brought in Skylar and Flynn to be at the trial too, but just her seeking vengeance for Hank, and even though Saul was very tertiarily connected, he's the only one left besides Jesse, who's out missing, who has anything to do with it.
Yeah, and I wasn't like Marie's not like she's such a great character, but. And that's no problem with Betsy Brandt, the actress, and what she does is just fine. But it's because I understand her role and what she contributes to the show of that side of like kind of tethering Skylar back to reality, because you need to have someone that's constantly trying to put themselves into your situation and like to be a different type of crazy than Skylar is dealing with on her own personal, because what Marie's dealing with is, besides when Hank gets shot, it's really small potatoes compared to what Skylar is dealing with. But yet Marie blows it up to like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is going on, and there's this and there's these problems, and and Skylar's like, shut up, I have actual problems, what's wrong with you?
Didn't Skylar actually blow up at her once? I'm trying to remember.
When it was the final season, and she just starts yelling, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up at her, and just like over and over. And I'm like, I think us fans kind of wanted you to say this to Marie for a while now.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't have thought of Marie, but I think yeah, you're right. She definitely it presents differently, but I think it definitely counts.
Yeah. Who else you got?
I got Paris Geller from Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, same thing, like from the very beginning at Chilton and then into Yale as well. She's like, everything has to be perfect. We have to get straight A's. And if you're not successful, if you don't have the next 15 years of your life planned out, then you're a loser. And she's not doing it to be mean. She's just doing it as a matter of fact. As like, she is so sure of herself. And it's almost like she's an early version of like Sheldon Cooper, where she knows she's smart. And she kind of has a superiority complex against her. Like, she thinks that because she's smart, she's better than everybody else.
Yeah.
I think it really comes when she took over the paper at Yale and got so controlling that everybody else quit. And then she like made a little bunker in the like out of it's like making a fort where she was like working 24/7 controlling this the Yale newspaper, because everybody else quit because she was that controlling. Like, she took it to an extreme level. Like, Annie and Amy, they still kept their friends around.
Yeah. Paris is a really good example, because you look at a lot of these characters, and she's a more I know there's plenty of comedic moments in Gilmore Girls, and I don't think people would classify it as a drama more than a comedy, but it definitely had a lot of dramatic moments. And I think there's a realism to Paris's mental processing, because when you look at a lot of these characters, and there's a lot of successful characters that are managing this sort of behavior.
Yeah.
But the thing is that like, it's this compulsion. Like, that's a normal thing, is that there are a lot of these people in the world that they have such a compulsion to succeed and perform and to have success and to not fail and to have this perfectionism sort of mentality that they can't get a B or lower. They can't fail this. They can't let people down. They can't, and they get so fixated on these results that it creates a hostile environment for the people around them, because they have to get that A. And so she's a really interesting foil for Rory, because Rory is smart and capable of the same things, but Rory doesn't have the same drive that Paris does. And so she has desires, but she lets like the editor, Logan's dad, where he's like, you don't got it. You don't got what it takes.
Yeah.
He was right. Like, he was a jerk about it, but he was right, because she let just one person decide her future. and she kind of collapsed upon herself, and the day in the life, she still isn't doing what she set out to do. She's still wandering about because she was emotionally destroyed by what one person said. And Paris doesn't have that problem because her biggest issue is what she says to herself and not what anyone else says about her. So it worked really good comparison with Rory.
Yeah. All right. Do you have anyone left on your list?
Well, I already said one Marie, and I think there is a different Marie that we could talk about because I don't know if she would fit this mold, but she definitely has some overlap in this with Marie Barone from Everybody Loves Raymond.
You could put her here. I would probably put her in like a controlling mother category.
Yeah.
With like Howard's mom from How I Met Your Mother, or Howard's mom from Big Bang Theory. But we can talk about Marie because she is also like, her house is so clean. There's an episode once where it's like I think either Ray or Robert is selling a vacuum cleaner where they got sold like door to door. Yeah. And it's supposed to like show you how dirty your carpets actually are. Like you vacuum a little bit, what looks like clean carpet. It's like black sludge in there. And they do it at Marine's house and it just gets completely clear. And she's like, I think it's cleaner now that you vacuumed my carpet.
And then Deborah tries to vacuum in the plant and she pulls the plant up and the plant soil is wrapped in the protective plastic as well. And there's not even dirt in the plant pot. And she's like, you got to be kidding me.
And at one point, Marie's like, there are no spare moments. Like, you have to be cleaning all the day. Like, it's funny how like she is also controlling, like she is the lead of her and Frank. Like what she says goes. But also, she also lets Frank be a lazy bum and sit on the couch, and she does everything for him. And I mean, she is clearly the one. I mean, actually, the more I talk about it, the more I realize she fits in this category more than I realized.
Yeah, it's not the same presenting as any of the other ones that we talked about for sure, but they're definitely
probably because we're seeing her also like probably 50 years later than all the other ones we had.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, when we boil down mental health things, it really can boil down, no matter what it is, it can boil down to how you cope. And really the way that your brain functions is how you cope with stress or how you cope with what's the word that with stimulation, how you cope with something new from your environment being presented to you. And so that's where these things diverge, is that the way your mental pathways are set up, it depends on what is your stimulus and how you're responding to that. And so she copes with whatever is going on in her life by, I have to control my family. I have to be the one in charge. I am the alpha. No one is going to mess with that. And as long as everyone knows I'm the best cook and everyone knows I'm the best cleaner and everyone knows I'm the one who makes the decisions, then everything can be okay. And that is problematic. That's a hard personality to live with.
I wish we had heard like anything. I don't remember hearing anything about Marie's parents. I mean, maybe in 9 years they mentioned. I know Frank talked about how his dad was abusive. That's the only thing I remember about either of their parents. Mm-hmm. But it'd be interesting to see, like, did Marie learn this from her mother? Is that how that was?
Yeah, and most likely, yeah, because these sorts of things do tend to either be genetic or they get passed on based on just this. This is what you see, and you see it all the time from your parents, and you end up adopting it yourself.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Ray and Robert had a sister, how she would be like or unlike Marie.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think she absolutely would be. I think she'd try not to be, but then realize that she is.
Yeah. So I have one more on my list, and it's a different kind of variation of this, which is Angela Martin from The Office.
Yeah.
Again, she is kind of more the controlling figure. Especially when it comes to parties, like her whole beef with Phyllis is that she thinks Phyllis is incompetent and she wants to be in charge of everything. The point where like Phyllis gets put in charge, we talked about this at Goodbye Toby. She shreds her vendor list, which is on paper, and like everything has to be about Jesus, even though she is constantly being adulterous throughout the whole series. Doesn't matter, but like she has her ideas and how she wants to present herself. And nothing will ever veer from that.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know, like, I don't know if I would have put her in the category here. We definitely can talk about her. I don't know if I would have, just because there is, like, where do you draw the line in terms of like being a jerk versus you have literally chemical brain waves or pathways in your brain that cause you to react. And it's like, there's probably a little bit of both in all of this, like hormones and life choices that have led you to how you think. But she does have the issue, that same issue of controlling everyone 100%.
Yeah. It's funny, like by like halfway through the series, everybody knows that she's cheated on Dwight and Andy and everybody, and she still is like, nope, this is how I'm the Jesus lady who does everything proper. Like the secret's out of the bag by like season 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so frustrating to see such a hypocritical person, because that's really what it is. She wasn't so bad in the first 2 seasons when they didn't know what they're going to do with her, but then she became a bigger role. Like, well, we really have to dig deep on the B-wordy side of Angela.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, like, seeing Angela Martin, is that her real name too?
No, her real name is Angela Kinsey.
Kinsey, thank you. That's right. I knew that. That see her in interviews and to hear her on the podcast and stuff, she seems like a really fun, delightful person.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so the way that she plays, I mean, it's the same thing with Rosa Diaz from from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Stephanie Beatrice seems really fun and kind, and so it's really fun to see them just be like, no, I never smile, I'm angry about everything sort of personality.
You know, I forget where it was. I heard some interview. If it was with, I think it was with both Stephanie Beatrice and Melissa Fumero, who played Amy, and like they were both like going through the auditions, and they both thought like, well, there's no way they're going to hire both of us. They're not going to have 2 Latino females on this in the core cast. They didn't think they would both be hired. But this show definitely went hard on the diversity.
Yeah, and like it's really nice to see a diversity that doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, okay, we need 1 Black person, we need 1 Latino, because like that is typically what happens. But it's like you had 2 really great actresses that were both Latina. You had 2 really good actors that were both Black. You had a great mix of male and female throughout the cast. It was just good diversity, and they all were really good characters except for Gina.
Yeah, Gina was okay in small doses. There were some moments I liked her, but yeah, I agree with you for overall. Yeah, it's funny, like listening to watching Community. I was like, there's an episode towards the end with Elroy. He made some comment like, "Am I supposed to be this like you're this group's token Black person?" And then Dean, because at this point Shirley and Troy are both left, he starts to say, "Well, actually, before you, they used to have 2," and Jeff cuts him off. Nope, stop talking.
I do, yeah, I like that moment, and I like how, like, you know, something is said. I can't remember the exact thing that's said, but they all look to Elroy to be like, "Hey, is this okay, Black person?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's fine."
He's like, "Is this going to be my role here?" Someone said Black, and you're looking at me to give you the all clear.
And then the other side of that at the wedding, like his being able to encourage white people. I love that. That was such a good joke.
Yeah. What a bold move for a show on primetime TV to do. We're going to do an incest wedding episode.
Why not? Here's my last person to talk about too, and this almost feels like it's cheating because they really just got a female version of a male character from this show. But Amy Farrah Fowler is the female Sheldon, and that's really the baseline that they started with. But they did give her own personality, and they did make her different enough from Sheldon that she stood out. But there is so much of the overlap of the on the spectrum autistic type behavior that also is hyper fixated on the numbers and logic and etc. and struggles with the emotional component. And so she's a really good character because she isn't emotional compared to a lot of the women that they have on show, so to speak. But compared to Sheldon, she has emotions where he doesn't. And so then it's just like the very little that she shows is too much for him. And there is some good comedy in that.
Well, yeah, you're right. In the very beginning, she was more like the female Sheldon, and
Yeah.
after a while, she kind of switched, and she kind of became what I describe as like she's like the little nerdy girl inside who never had friends, and now she's like so excited. Yeah, I have Penny and Bernadette. I have female friends now,
Yeah.
and like going overboard, kind of like being a Charles to Jake. Is that kind of how she is to Amy? But
Yeah.
that takes a couple seasons in. I think for a while she is very much like you are Sheldon Cooper. I am Amy Farrah Fowler.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
they
fun
knew
with
that. I think they knew that having them be exactly the same is good for a joke. But if she's going to be a long-term character, they need to expand on her more, which I'm glad she did because she was on the show for like most of it. I think she came in like season 3 or 4.
I don't remember when. I thought it was just a little bit later, but still in there for a good amount. I think she's probably on the show for as much as Coach is on New Girl.
No, because Coach was like he was here for a full season, and then like a season and a half, and then he would just come back for guest appearances. Where she came in, whether it was like 4 or 5 or whatever, and then she was all the way through season 12.
Oh, maybe Big Bang Theory went longer than I thought it did.
Yeah, it went literally twice as long as New Girl, which had 6 seasons.
That's fair. So if you extrapolate it and compare the amount of percentage of episodes Coach is in versus the percentage of episodes Amy's in, maybe it's still correct, but I don't know. Probably not.
There's also an early episode of Big Bang Theory where they're saying, you know who's really smart is the girl from Blossom.
Oh yeah,
and then kind of like the continuity, kind of how like Leonard's bully is played by the same actor who played Sheldon's dad in Young Sheldon.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
maybe his dad came back to haunt Leonard.
Yeah,
boom.
I'm glad you said haunt because he's dead, right?
Yep. Yeah. Not is the actor's not though, just the characters. Okay.
Actually, they had to kill him because they said throughout all of Big Bang Theory that his dad died. But the actor Lance Barber, in the funeral scene of his funeral, I saw this on TikTok. He's actually in the background of his own funeral scene, dressed like a woman.
Boy, that's some Tom Sawyer level stuff.
Yeah, it's like and you'll never notice it because they don't focus on her. But she's like, there's just some woman in the background who's actually Lance Barber in drag,
and
attending
she's
his own
crying
funeral.
the loudest. I don't.
Yeah.
All right. So Brian, if you had to pick one of these women to either be best friends or married to, who would you pick?
I think I would probably take Amy because she's proven that she can actually also have fun. Like she participates in the heists. She'll also defend Jake. Like they're going into the sewers at one point for a job, and she's like, "Dude, obviously we're going into the sewers. He's gonna think about the Ninja Turtles. That's just a given." And like she's there to back him up while still being OCD, and that's a good person to have in your corner.
You're right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Marie Barone, but I think you've convinced me.
You know what? You do you.
I will. No, I think that's a good answer. Amy is a good character, and one of all of these characters, I think she's the one that I would actually appreciate as a person in real life.
Yeah.
I like Ellie, I'd get so annoyed at. Both Maries, I'd be like, no, you both are too much. Monica, she's fine. I just don't think I know I have a more of a personality type of a Chandler, but I don't think I could be with a Monica,
No. Even though I consider myself, I've said this before, my character type, if you're to compare me to characters on TV shows, I would say I'm a mix of Abed and Chandler.
Yeah. Just, not as funny and not as Abed.
I think I'm more Abed than Chandler.
Well, your skin would disagree.
Personality-wise.
Oh, is that what we're talking about? I didn't.
Yeah. Do you think I meant physically? You thought physically I looked like Abed?
No, of course not.
Polish Arabic guy.
Physically, if I looked like someone, it's probably Marie Barone. I think it's still it. All right. Well, there you go. That is this week's episode. I know we got some trivia, but I really want to I want to promo next week or next time that we have it, we're doing something we haven't done before. We are in August. It is fantasy football season. If you guys are like fantasy football fans, then you are probably planning for your drafts. What we're going to do, we're going to be joined by some special guests that we haven't yet completely locked down, so I'm not going to say their names, but we're going to be joined by some special guests. And what we're going to do is we're going to draft a fantasy football TV team. So we're going to pick some awesome people. We're going to pick our rosters of who'd be a great main character, who's a great love interest, who's best friend, etc. And so we're going to pick these from different TV characters, and we're going to assemble our best fantasy football team TV sitcom thing. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you check it out next week or 2 weeks, whenever we air this.
Yeah, it depends on how long it takes us to film, how long it takes me to edit, and how long it takes Matt to upload the videos. Which,
and really, that third one is the one that's the biggest question mark. We recently had a whole month gap between episodes, but I probably could have posted it like a week and a half earlier. I was busy, and then I was like, oh yeah, I need to post that. Oh yeah, I need to post it, and I never did. So.
Matt at one point even told me, hey, you're going to have to remind me to post this a bunch of times. And so like second time I messaged you, you're like, just, I'm out of town. I don't have time. And I'm like, well, you told me to remind you.
Didn't I say, hey, thanks for the reminder, about 10 more and I'll do it.
Yeah, something like that. So basically this podcast, it'll come out whenever it comes out.
And you will be happy about it. Well, hey, if we had people yelling at us and giving us feedback on our social media sites or on our YouTube channel, which we now have, or on as a review, we would be like, oh, you know what? These people with their reviews or their emails or even texts, because I know there's some of you guys who know us personally, we'd be like, yeah, maybe I need to respond to these people that are pressuring us and giving us comments. So let us know what you think.
Yep.
Trivia time.
Yeah.
All right. So last week we talked about Goodbye Toby. Great episode, and a great episode of our podcast. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. You might want to listen to it at like 2 times speed because, boy, that's a long episode. That's our longest we've ever done talking about Goodbye Toby.
Yeah.
But we asked a question. The office building that they film at, it's in Van Nuys. I think that's how it's pronounced. Van Nuys, California. But it is on a street named, and they reference that street in The Office. So what street is the building that they filmed for The Office? What is that street called? And that is Saticoy Street, aka Saticoy Steel, from the company that Charles Miner worked at before he came to Dunder Mifflin.
Does David know he doesn't come from paper?
You know what happens if you put paper in a furnace? Ruin it.
Oh, he doesn't say burn. He says you ruin it.
It's true.
All right. So for this week's trivia, one of the women that we talked about, it's kind of a sad story. She is the only main character of her show that never got nominated for an Emmy throughout the entire show's run. So who, out of everyone we talked about today, is the only one to not get nominated from her show for an Emmy?
I got it.
Do you think you know this one?
I do. All right. Well, let us know if you think you know this one, and if you don't, that's fine too. You'll find out next time. Until then, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.